Greetings and welcome to our daily Devo for Thursday. It is June the 1st. We've entered a new month here in 2023. We are moving on to Gideon's Spring today. And remember, we're using this book, the Holy Land Devotional, Inspirational Reflections from the Land Where Jesus Walked by John Beck. Gideon's Spring from Judges chapter 7, verses 1 through 8 is the passage they cite. They quote verse 7. The Lord said to Gideon, with the 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home. This is one of those really cool stories. Teaches us a lot about our faith in God. Gideon's Spring still gurgles from the base of Mount Gilboa in a serene park that is popular with local Israeli families who come to camp, picnic, and play in the water. They come to this green space in order to relax by the spring and escape the tough questions we all face in life. Ironically, the Lord brought Israel here for very different reasons. To prepare for war and to face this difficult question, is one God enough? Israel's stumbling answers to this question haunt every story in the book of Judges, which is where we meet the first generations of God's chosen people who came out of the wilderness. These families who were settling in the promised land had no experience growing food there. So they turned to their Canaanite neighbors for a lesson in local agriculture. Some of the advice was benign. Israel learned when to expect rain and dew and how to time the planting harvesting cycle accordingly. Then came the insidious part. The Canaanites insisted that Israel must worship Baal, the local deity that provided the vital rain and dew. They weren't asking Israel to abandon the Lord. They were simply honoring the ancient Near Eastern maxim that one God is never enough. And Israel made the theological compromise. Even Gideon's family built a center for Baal worship in their town. You can read about that in Judges 6, 25 and 26. This theological betrayal led to invasion as the Lord allowed people from the adjacent eastern desert to repeatedly raid the promised land. The Midianites, the Amalekites, and other eastern people groups had no interest in seizing territory, only the food that the Israelites had grown. As these hungry hordes poured into the land, they left Israel impoverished and despairing. That's Judges 6, 1 through 6. Now the Lord had Israel's attention, and he set about using this moment to reteach them a fundamental principle that distinguished Israel from its pagan neighbors. One God is enough. Then, as Gideon assembled the tribal soldiers for action against the invaders, the Lord began sending them home. From a tactical perspective, this was unthinkable. The armies of Israel and Midian were both similarly equipped. The one variable that a general like Gideon could control was the number of soldiers that he would lead into battle. In ancient contests like this, catastrophic loss of life was the norm, with victory going to the army that was able to absorb the greatest number of casualties. So how did Israel's numbers stack up? As the soldiers gathered to hydrate at the spring, Gideon was outnumbered 4-1. Compare Judges 7:3 to Judges 8:10. And that is when the Lord tells Gideon in 7:2, you have too many men. The Lord instructs Gideon to keep reducing his numbers until he is left with a mere 300 soldiers. It's with this paltry group that the Lord demonstrates his ability to save many, save by many or by few. I too am tempted to look at the numbers, whether it's the number in my bank account or the number of social media followers I have. But only one number is critical to my success and well-being. We have one God. I dare not underestimate his ability to save by many or by few. One God is enough when our God is the Lord. And of course, you read the rest of that and you know that Israel had the victory because of God, even with only 300 soldiers. 2 questions. When have you faced a challenge in life that left you questioning if God was enough? And question number 2, how does Psalm 73, 25, and 26 relate to the encouragement offered at Gideon's spring? You'll have to go and read that and do a little study on that maybe. When we have our eyes fixed on the numbers, and in studying for my sermon for this coming Sunday, which has been reflected in one of the devotions this week, I think of the question that pastors always used to ask directly, and now it's there, but it's seen differently, worded differently. How many are running? I still have one person in my life who that's the question they always want to ask. How many were there? Even though I try to explain to her over and over again, the numbers aren't the secret. The numbers aren't the test. Is God being honored? Is our faith in God? Are we living for God? Those are the measuring standards for God's people, not how many are there. Because God can do whatever he wants, even with one, let alone 25,000 or 300 or whatever the numbers may be. Those are the world's standards, not God's. Matter of fact, he would prefer few in number so that when great things happen, he gets the credit, he gets the glory, he gets the recognition. Here's the prayer for today. Lord, I confess that when life takes a hard turn, I'm tempted to look for solutions beyond you. I fear that you are not enough. Please use this time to remind me that the one God I have is enough. Whom have I in heaven but you? Blessings to you today